All the girls and boys have gone away. They never really had much to say. They took off all their clothes and their shoes, politely asked to be excused. They're the children on parade. They have secrets that they share. They're the children on parade. And nobody knows, nobody knows. All the broken toys lie on the floor. There's no more laughter from down the hall. Mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall. Whatever could have happened to them all? To the children on parade. And all the secrets that they share. They're the children on parade. And nobody knows, nobody knows. All across the world, just yesterday, all the girls and boys just went away. They took off all their clothes and their shoes. I'd love to someday hear all the news about the children on parade, and all the secrets that they share. They're the children on parade. And nobody knows, nobody knows, nobody knows, nobody knows.
Let's join together in prayer. Precious and loving God, we have these unique moments in our lives that we kind of feel like we're under rocks. That we feel like that we truly are between a rock and a hard place, and we deal with emotions in our lives that we're not really sure that we can say out loud. Today, Lord, as we deal with this conversation, as we wrestle through this place of unknowing and fear, we ask for you to be with us. And in your Son's precious and loving name I pray. Amen. There's a phrase that I use during our prayer time at our worship center that's pretty deep and personal. Every time that we go through prayers, we go through the communal prayers, the community prayers. We light candles for things that individuals ask for prayers for, and they share them out loud in the congregation. They share prayers for friends and loved ones, parents, worldwide situations, and they express these things outwardly, and we light prayers for them. And I always save the last candle for a very special prayer request. It's the times that we are dealing with things that are so deep and personal, we don't know how to put them in words. It's the times that we deal with things that are so deep and scary that we don't know if we can say them out loud. It's the times that we are wrestling with something through the night, that we are walking through our own personal valleys of the shadows of death, and it's just so much doesn't make sense to us that we don't know how to communicate it with another person. For those unspoken moments and within those unspoken fears, that's why I picked this Colin Hay song this week. Another week of Colin Hay and processing this this parade of children that at times are invisible to others. This parade of children that are sometimes hurting so deeply and so badly they don't know how to get the words out, or they don't feel like they can get the words out. I want to talk about that today because we all go on those journeys for different reasons. There has been a time within the existence of our beings that we have dealt with something that has been so deep and real in our lives that the fear that joins it puts us in places that we either don't know how to communicate it, or it's almost more scary to say it out loud and to deal with it. I would like to process those things with you today, and I want to share 3 reasons that I have experienced personally that we don't share things out loud. The first thing is we don't know how others will feel about it. A lot of the fears that we deal with in our lives are connected to acceptance. If another person will like me, if another person will include me into their journeys for what I'm dealing with, even though I'm dealing with things. And we don't know how other people will react to those things. Within not understanding how other people will react to things, sometimes some of the things we deal with actually accelerate because the problem that we're dealing with becomes sort of this moment of comfort from not sharing it with other people. I think about the beginning stages of personal addictions, and I please hear me as I share the beginning stages because I believe alcohol and drugs. I believe that those dependencies actually need medical assistance and care for. So they're not things that we can just say out loud and admit, but there are things that we actually have to go and receive more professional care for. So don't misinterpret the next thing that I share. But in the beginning stages of those things, there's some kind of inner emotional conflict that we haven't understood yet, and we mask those pains through self-medication. And within doing that, within the fear of saying something out loud, we've actually created a new issue. So when we deal with things that we are afraid to say out loud and we kind of handle them differently, then we get this new problem. And then it becomes a new problem that we hold within ourselves and we don't share with other people. That it becomes more of a burden, it becomes more of an anchor, and we don't know how to break through and break past it. A lot of those interpersonal things that we hold with that we don't know if we can share out loud in different ways. We've heard different people make fun of them, the issues that we're dealing with, and maybe not to us, but in generic comments about seeing something else. Sometimes we don't like so much of what this thing is doing for us that if we don't feel good about ourselves because of it, there's no way anyone else could show comfort or compassion because of it. And then it just all loops and loops around until that we are actually harming ourselves more and have created new issues just because we haven't gotten to a place that we found another person that we could trust enough to be honest and vulnerable about what we're dealing with. So I've shared that, and I want to reiterate when I make that statement, especially about addiction issues. Believe me, I understand that there are levels that addiction issues require medical help, and it is a lot more than saying being honest with someone and starting to process the feelings. But it starts there. It starts with that honesty and vulnerability so that the professional medical help can come along. You know, those personal things that we don't know quite how to express, and we wonder how other people will feel about it. It steps outside of the addictive issues. I think so fondly on special days like National Coming Out Day. As I record this, it's the early days of November. And as we deal with the month of November, there's everything between Alzheimer's Awareness Month as well as Transgender Awareness Month. And I think about the awkwardness within these two journeys as individuals have to begin processing what they are discovering about themselves in both of these journeys. Now, normally I talk a lot about our LGBTQIA plus siblings in these videos. Well, let's take a moment to talk about Alzheimer's awareness and this Alzheimer's Awareness Month. When when you begin to notice that you are forgetting things, when you find yourselves in moments of confusion and worry, that's scary. That's scary. There's something within inside you that isn't doing what it's supposed to do. And there is a lot more fear about than looking awkward that you can't remember things and trying to address it properly. There's a lot of fear that comes along with it, especially if you're of a certain age, that if I'm honest about these things, what other things am I going to lose? You know, a lot of our older friends, our more seasoned siblings, are already dealing with things like the inability of doing things for themselves in their homes. They're already dealing with the issues of, I need this mobility because it's the only way that I get interaction with other people. And if I am honest about this new journey that I'm starting to see begin in my life, what what am I going to lose other than just my thoughts and my memories? And then there's the big fear of losing your thoughts and your memories. And you forget about your loved ones, and you forget about who that dear loving soul is that's in the room with you. And it's a hard journey. So there's fears of not just what you're dealing with, and it's not just fears of making the problems worse, it's the fears of what else we're going to lose as a part of these journeys. That's what I think about as we also address Transgender Awareness Month, as this is November as I record this. As you look at our LGBTQIA plus siblings who work through themselves, there are multiple levels of allowing others into our journeys. And the first stage is we have to allow ourselves into our journeys. As we deal with these prayers that we don't know how to say out loud, a lot of the reasons of that is we haven't even allowed ourselves onto this journey to process it and work it out yet. I think about many places that I have seen the extent of LGBTQIA plus bullying, and the effects of that is sometimes I've seen our LGBTQIA plus siblings bullying themselves as they are trying so very hard not to admit or to cherish or to to join the journey that they're on themselves. They try to recreate other paths. They do everything possible for this not to be true, but it is true. So as we deal with these prayers that we don't deal with out loud, we don't deal with them out loud because we also can't deal with them inwardly. So there's the personal in that. And then there's also the communal. Well, we worry if people will love us for who we are. We worry if people will accept the things that we'll say back. We worry about the relationships we will lose if we say them out loud. And it becomes very scary. So there's all these inward things that we have to deal with that if we don't deal with them properly, if we don't admit them early enough, then they become bigger issues and they either scar us inwardly and emotionally, or we're worried that we will be scarred if we deal with them outwardly. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I feel that I have experienced is if you omit things outwardly, then you are worried that you will become a target for another person. Now, this works across the spectrum of everything that I've shared. And again, before I get into this next issue, I wholeheartedly believe and I wholeheartedly know that our addictive issues, when not handled properly, immediately become medical issues that absolutely have to be attended to. So, in the early stages, when we're afraid to share out loud to another person, hey, I am masking pain through doing these things, we really do worry that we will become pushed away or ridiculed, whether it be addictive issues, whether it be our emotional journeys, and whether it be us allowing ourselves into our journeys or allowing others into our journeys. We really do worry about being targeted by others as an example of what's wrong and terrible, and then we become a target of ridicule, and the situation just gets worse and worse. So there's a lot of inward struggle that comes from, if I say this out loud, will I be a target? And I've heard it from everyone from the dear souls who are stuck on the side of the street that deal with addiction issues, with mental health issues. Anytime that we have a mental health journey, it's hard to share that out loud. It's hard to say that I deal with these levels of emotional anxiety, because as soon as we share mental and emotional health concerns, we become a target of concern from others as well. It's scary. It's scary. So as we hold all these inward prayers and these inward journeys, we have to be able to find places for the proper support. Thankfully, if you Google things, if you Google any form of support groups, there's every form of support group, from Overeaters Anonymous to Alcoholics Anonymous to Narcotics Anonymous to there's sexual addiction programs. There's everything. There's groups that get together to sit down and talk and be in honest places as our dear friends try to find ways to even allow themselves into their journeys, as much less invite others to be a part of those journeys as well. And with all these things, we have to find the places that will give it. So I know this is a religious based conversation, but I'll share with you also, we can have the whole greater kingdom praying for us, but we also need to find ways that we can be active in that care. And that activeness and that care is summed up in a meme that I just love. It is the reality that we can have a therapist and Jesus too. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to say this wrong. I may make some of you upset. Forgive me. I feel that sometimes we turn to prayer as a masking agent from actually getting the help that we actually need. If I turn to prayer, then I don't have to admit that I need that therapist, that I don't have to admit that I need to go into that program, that I don't have to admit who I am and how I feel uncomfortable when I look in the mirror. And for all the wonderful, powerful things that I believe that prayer can do, I also believe that prayer can become the masking agent just as much as alcohol or drugs can. So within the healthy balance of prayer, we also have to realize that God has equipped some very wonderful angels within our lives to sit next to us and go on this journey with us so that we can talk about the things that are hurting us in such a way and actually get the help that we actually need. As we look at these AANA support groups, name your support group here, I believe that these places are the answers of prayers and they become the active prayers that we need to participate in as we deal with these prayers that we don't know how to say out loud. So before I get any emails at pastordrewdavis@gmail.com, I believe that prayer is the most powerful thing in the world, and sometimes those prayers are answered actively when we turn to these support programs to have someone to hold our hands through guidance. If you're dealing with these things, I want you to Google it. I want you to Google emotional support care. I want you to Google AANA, what have you. I want you to Google support groups for. I want you to email me at pastordrewdavis@gmail.com and say, Preacher Man, this is what I'm dealing with. Who is out there who has the sources that can really help me? Because as we deal with these inward, quiet prayers that we feel that we become invisible because of, if we don't find the help, then they become deep-rooted traumas that it becomes much harder to work through. So within your moments of vulnerability, if you want to be an invisible place and still exist within your um, unspoken prayers, email me at pastordrewdavis@gmail.com anonymously and just say, hey, what is there for? What is there for? What is there for this? What is there for that? And I'll send you back emails and phone numbers and just to help you find that place. Because as much as I believe that when we find a way to voice these unspoken prayers, I also believe that God already has some active places set in place that we can turn to and we can move into active care to deal with all these things. Thank you for listening to me through this time of conversation. My name is the Reverend Michael Drew Davis. May the peace of the Lord Jesus Christ be with you all, no matter what you're struggling with. God is love. Amen.
This has been a presentation of Transcended Media.